Shalom. So we are now in Parashat Ekev. Ekev is Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12 until chapter 11, 25. And the Haftarah is Isaiah 49, verse 14 to chapter 51, verse 3. And if Ekev, so Ekev means a lot of things, not only if, you listen to these ordinances and keep them and do them, it shall come to pass that the Lord your God will keep you for the covenant and the lovingness which is swore to your fathers. So we're going to talk about this parasha. You know, when we read all the parashot, sometimes when you read with the literal sense, it doesn't seem so wow, but we need to dig and to find all the treasures that every little word in this parashot, the Torah, can reveal to us. So this is what we're going to do. So this commentary is going to be a little bit more complicated than the others because it calls for deeper notions in the study of the Torah of secrets. So just follow and hopefully it will be clear. Well, I will make myself clear. So we're going to talk about the 7 species of the land of Israel. Deuteronomy 8, 7, 10 tells us, "For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron and out of whose hills you can dig copper. When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless your Lord your God for the good land which he has given you." So Hashem promises to give a good land whose 7 species characterize the land of Israel. They are the wheat, the barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, date, honey. You can find them in all artistic drawing, the 7 species of the land of Israel. The commandment, the mitzvah, to bless the Lord after eating is explicitly given. We bless the meal after eating, not before. As it says, "When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless your Lord your God for the good land which he has given to you." So we are here 2 blessings. Bless the Lord for having eaten to your fill, and bless the Lord for the land of Israel. That is the only verse in the Torah where Hashem asks us to bless him. And it is only according to a rabbinic halacha, the decree that the rabbis told us, that the prayer of blessing before the meal was introduced based on the following verse. In 1 Samuel 9:13, we can read that as soon as you come into the city, we're talking about the prophet Samuel, you will surely find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterwards, those who are invited will eat. So you see that the Torah is commanding us to bless after the meal, and the rabbis commanded us to do it before the meal. So let's see what is written in Brachot in the Talmud 35. "If you enjoy something in this world without saying a blessing, it is as if you stole it. Just open the fridge up yourself and you'd say thank you to anyone." How do we learn to bless before? It is kal v'chomer, light and heavy. What is kal and chomer? It's a biblical way of interpreting the scriptures from the lightest to the heaviest. And Yeshua, by the way, used this method when he said that Luke 12:28, "If this is how God clothed the grass, which is alive in the field today and thrown in the oven tomorrow, how much more, kal and chomer, light and heavier, will he clothe you? What little trust you have." So, if the Torah requires a blessing after the meal when we are full, how much more so when one is hungry, continued Brachot. Indeed, to enjoy without blessing is stealing from God, since the earth is God's in its fullness. It's obvious. If you want to eat something, you say, "Please, may I? Thank you." And then after, "Thank you because I ate it." And Yeshua respected this rabbinic custom, and he blessed the bread before meals. Motzi lechem min haaretz. Luke 24:30. Now it came to pass, and he sat at the table with them, that he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. The problem is that we only kept this part without keeping the other one, but obviously the Jews there in the New Testament were blessing after the meals as well. This teaches us that the rabbinic decisions, all rabbinic decisions, were not bad, chas v'shalom. Some of them even appear in the Brit Hadashah and they were observed by the first believers. This is one among the others. There are many of them. Acts 1:12. Then they returned to Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, which is near Jerusalem, a Shabbat's day journey. What is a Shabbat day? It's a certain distance that you're allowed to walk on Shabbat, not more. It was respected. So therefore, there are blessings for each of the 7 species. And of course, the 7 species are going to talk to us about the Messiah, as usual in the Torah. So let's start. We're going to talk about some numbers here, 7 and 10. Earlier in the previous parasha, it speaks of the peoples that were promised to Israel. 7 are mentioned for the conquest, Deuteronomy 7:1. When the Lord your God brings you into the land when you are going to possess it, and he drives out many nations before you, the Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, 7 nations more numerous and more powerful than you. But earlier, in the promise to Abraham, 10 were mentioned, and in Genesis 15. And the Lord made a covenant with Abraham in that day, saying, I will give this land to your seed, from the river of Egypt until the great river, even unto the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Kadmonites, and those 3 are not mentioned, and then the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. I'm not going to enter into all those names, but each one of these is a very interesting teaching. 7 of those nations were for the present conquest, and the last 3, it is said that they will be for the Messianic era, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, and the Kadmonites. Similarly, in the same thing, there are 7 kinds of species of the land of Israel, and 3 more fruits will be revealed in the Messianic era. So in order to understand all this, we're going to call upon knowledge with those who study with us for a little while. They know what we're talking about, and the others maybe it might be new, so I will reduce the teaching to its simplest form, but I'm sending you to the playlist that we have on the YouTube channel, the Minute Zohar, which you can start to understand some things about it, and these are notions of biblical Kabbalah and the Zohar. We have a course that we are doing on the website. It's called Introduction to Biblical Kabbalah, where you can learn all those things too. So the Kabbalists explain that these fruits have a much deeper meaning, of course. Each corresponds to one of the 7 sphirot. You see, this is the tree of life. You have the 3 upper and sometimes 4, and then you have the 7 lower, which are divine attributes. All of those 10 are divine attributes. The one, that the lower one, the 7th one, that corresponds to our species. The wheat is chesed, which is goodness, mercy. The barley is gvura, which is judgment, rigor, severity. The grapes is the middle column, is tiferet, harmony. The figs, it's netzach, perseverance, victory. Pomegranates correspond to od, humility. Olives to foundation, yesod. And the dates, it's in our word, the malchut, the kingdom here. I'm not going to detail all of them. It's very rich, very deep. Just going to have an overview of everything. Each soul possesses all of these 7 of all 7 of these sphirot, because we are made at the image of God with the image of the tree of life. But for each person, one of these traits is more or less dominant. For instance, people will be rooted in chesed, mercy, more, and people will be rooted more in severity, judgment, or strength. It depends on the character. We are born like this. It shapes the soul's unique path to God. Thus, these 7 fruits, they correspond to the fact that we can serve God with our own attributes that are as His image. We need to be like Him. And these divine attributes also corresponds to members, to the members' organs of the body. So these 7 attributes here, they correspond to levels to access the Father. They are a part of what we call the emotional attributes, while the 3 other, the upper one, are more pertaining to the intellect attributes. I'm not going to enter all of this, but we need to find what is the biblical source of all those attributes. In the book of Chronicles, it is very clear, and also in the Brit Hadasha, in the New Testament. 1 Chronicle 29:11 tells us, "To you, O Lord, belong greatness, power, magnificence, eternity, glory, for all that is in heaven and on earth belongs to you, O Lord, belong the kingdom, for you are exalted above all." We have all our sfirot here. We have Agdula it's Chesed, the same way. Agvura, Atiferet, Anetzar, Aod, Shamayim va'aretz is Yesod, Mamlacha is Malchut. We all have the 7 one. And it's also mentioned several times in the book of Revelation, Revelation 7:12, for instance. Amen, praise, glory, wisdom, thanksgiving, honor, power, strength to be our God forever and ever. Here the wisdom is mentioned, Chochmah, which is part of the upper Sphira. We will come back on this later. So these 7 nations, they correspond to the 7 lower attributes that must be conquered, while the 3 upper correspond to the 3 higher spheres that are closer to God. These 3, the 3 bottom one, so Netzar, Od, and Yesod, are associated with fertility, with reproduction, producing fruit, because they are closest to our physical word, to the Malchut here. This is our word. And it leads to this word because the word we live in is the receptacle, the vessel to receive all this abundance. There's another source in the Lev Sameach, in Parashat Yitro, that tells us that just as the divine blessings for the whole world pass through the land of Israel, and if you visit Israel, come and visit the city of David with us. We'll explain in depth all the abundance that comes from the Gihon River. So the divine energy and blessings for all things that grow pass through those 7 special kinds of fruit which the land of Israel is blessed with. The land of Israel is the receptacle, the vessel of the divine seed. Since the land of Israel represents also the footstool of the Lord, where the kingdom is going to be established, the heavenly Jerusalem will come down in this physical one, it is called the bride. In Isaiah 62:4 we can read, "They shall not call thee forsaken anymore, neither shall they call thy land desolate, but they shall call thee my delight in it, and thy land shall be called a bride. For the Lord delights in thee, and thy land shall have a husband." And in Revelation 21, it says, "And I saw the holy city, the new Yerushalayim, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband." Everything is one. There is no 2 books or 3 books or whatever. Everything is just one. The Torah, the prophets, the Psalm, the writings, and the New Testament. New Testament is the wrong translation. The Brit Hadasha, the renewed covenant. So if we continue to go through the distinction of the divine attributes on the tree of life, the Sphira, so the attribute, Sphira is an attribute that channels all the blessing to our word, is that one Yesod, called foundation, the seat of reproduction, and also Messiah ben Yosef, associated with the Sphira, the righteous one, the path, and the Messiah ben Yosef, who must give his life for the return of the 10 tribes. Can you imagine the allusion here? Very clear. Joshua and Caleb, both representing the remnant of the houses of Judah and Ephraim and Judah, Joseph from Ephraim, that we have, that are going to lead the people in the promised land, they must pass through this channel, this Messiah suffering, to come and to sow the land of Israel with their presence. They're going to populate the land of Israel, to spread seed. And moreover, from the day of entry into the promised land, the Zohar is telling us that they will eat the wheat of the land, the bread of life. As for the status of the bride of the land of Israel, it will take fully effect when all the tribes are coming back home and the wedding of Messiah ben David is chosen once. Those tribes are coming back soon and soon because the Shekhinah, the Messiah, was sent to the nations to bring them back out of exile. At that moment, when the bridegroom and the bride are united, the last three nations of the Keynesian and Cadmonian and so will be conquered. They have, by the way, the same numerical value as the name of Israel. Amazing. So now who are those nations? The Kenite and the Kenizzite and the Cadmonite. So let's use the Midrash Rabbah now in Genesis. He's telling us, the rabbis said, Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon are the three nations that were not given to them in this word, as it is said in Deuteronomy 2:5. Do not attack them, for I will not give you in their land even the sole of your foot. I have given on Mount Seir for a possession to Esau. But, it continues, in the days of the Messiah, they shall once again belong to Israel in order to fulfill God's promise. So the Rambam, Maimonides, in the Laws of Kings tells us that this mitzvah is the proof of the coming of Messiah. In the future, the Messianic king will arrive and renew the Davidic dynasty, the Sukkot David, the tabernacle of David with the 12 tribes, restoring it to its original state. He will rebuild the temple and gather the dispersed of Israel. And not the dispersed that we know. We know that there are many tribes and many people that have some remnant and some traces of Judaism there. We know we can count them in everywhere. But the promise made to Jacob was myriads, thousands, millions of people coming back. Not only few. So we are talking about Ephraim coming back out of the exile and the sea of the nation. Whoever does not believe in the Messiah or does not await his coming, continues Maimonides, denies not only the prophecies of the prophets, but also those of Moshe and the Torah. The Torah testifies of his coming in connection with the cities of refuge that were to be established where? Edom, Moab, and Ammon, in those three countries. Deuteronomy 19:8, when the Lord your God shall enlarge your borders, and he swore unto your fathers, and shall give you all the land which he promised your fathers to give thee, provided that you shall observe and do all the mitzvot which I command thee this day, that you may love the Lord your God and walk in his ways always, you shall all three cities to these three. And continues the text and ends the text, this commandment has never yet been applied. Of course, God did not give it in vain. So what else do these nations represent? Edom is associated in Judaism, is the symbol of Rome. I'm really expressly sending you back to watch the video on Yom Kippur in the playlist, the biblical feast on Babylon or Jerusalem. You need to understand what is happening to the church during the 2000 years because of Esau, Edom, Rome, and so on. Once again, the shadow of Messiah is revealed with the gathering of the 12 tribes, because the tribes that have been lost into the false doctrines for 2000 years. But now, because the Shekhinah, the Messiah, has been sent to them, is bringing them back, and he has bring them back home, and is bringing them back to Torah. The numerical value of the word refuge, cities of refuge, is miklat. We saw this in the last parashat. 179, which is double value, is 358, like the same numerical value as the name Messiah, Mashiach. So there is a mystery to be unveiled and conquered, as it says in Ephesians 3:6. This mystery is that the Gentiles are co-heirs. They're coming back home from the same body and sharing the same promise in Yeshua Mashiach through the gospel. But reconciliation must take place between Judah and Ephraim, as prophesied in Ezekiel, that all accept the yoke of the Messiah and the Torah by the application of the Torah and the recognition that salvation comes from Judah, from the Jews, and that the Messiah has indeed been revealed to Ephraim, who holds this revelation. Both of the parts must become one stick in one hand. These nations from which Ephraim must return are 70 in number as a symbol. This is a secret because according to Genesis 10, so I'm sending you to the studies of Genesis, the number of the nations are 70, is 70. Just like, by the way, the value of the Gog and Magog, 70. So what does this number 70 means? Let us remember that the first miracle Yeshua performed was a transformation of the water into wine. Water represents in the Torah the revealed word, and the wine is the coded secret word which tells us precisely about the Messiah. Moreover, the numerical value of the word secret, sod, is the same as wine, yaid, 70. As it says in John 2:11, and say unto him, every man serve first the good wine, and after the not so good, after that one has drunk much. But you have kept the good wine until now. Yeshua performed this miracle in Cana, in Galilee. So he was revealing, the first thing he came for was to reveal the Torah of the secrets. He came for that, to reveal this. So now we have to talk about something else also. The 70 nations, they correspond to 70 like entities and like souls. They needed to go through Egypt to be redeemed. Who took them to Egypt? The 70 souls of Israel. They took those symbolically to Egypt. Egypt represents like the furnace, like the exile. Mitzrayim means, Egypt is Mitzrayim. In Hebrew it means limited, the limitation of our own flesh. And Israel is taking this into Egypt and is coming out of Egypt with the nations, meaning that Israel has been called to be a light to the nation, to help removing all the sparks of holiness of those nations out of Egypt. So this is why it is so important, because Egypt is like the flesh, Israel is like the light, and the light of the word, Or HaOlam, has the same numerical value one more time than Messiah. So it's the Messiah that we're talking about here. Now, another point. In Israel, we write, in Hebrew and in Israel, we write the name Yeshua. You write the name Yeshua with the Ayin at the end. Ayin, the letter Ayin in the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical value of 70. One more time. It's Ayin is I, the revelation. So what happened to the name of Yeshua in Israel? The Ayin was removed, and we call it here Yeshu, which some people say it's a curse, but it's not always a curse. It's just a way to dissimulate things. The Ayin, the 70, the letter 70, was sent to the 70 nations that have the revelation, partly the revelation of the Messiah. The two must come together. So the revelation of the redemption through Yeshua was divinely granted to the returning nations and the tribes. This is why this letter went there. But for the moment in Israel, it's only Yeshu. But it's going to come to a completeness, because the best one, this is the revelation of the secret of the Torah, in the miracle of the wedding of the Lamb, is that it's going to be a revelation for everyone. Both sides. One will have the revelation that he needs to come back to Torah, and the other part will have the revelation he needs to come back to his Messiah, a Jewish Messiah. Just as the three remaining nations have to be conquered, there is also the revelation of the three other species of the promised land mentioned in Revelation. Revelation 22, in the midst of the city square and on both sides of the river was a tree of life. That is the tree of life. Bearing fruit 12 times, like the 12 tribes. Yielding its fruits every month, whose leaves were for the healing of the nations. Yeah, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit say unto the congregation. To him that overcome, I will give him to eat the tree of life. The tree of life, you have the tree of life in the Gan Eden. You have the tree of knowledge, good and evil. This is tree. And this is what we are going to be able to eat this and to overcome all the evil. The tree of life is associated with the wisdom, which is the Torah. Chokhmah. Chokhmah is the upper sphere of the tree of life. We mentioned it in the previous verse in Revelation, up a little bit upper. And in Deuteronomy 4:6 it says that you shall keep them and do them, for this shall be your wisdom, chokhmah, upper sphirot, and your understanding. This is bina, tvuna, this is the second sphira, higher one, in the sight of the people. And they shall hear all of these statutes, and they shall say, this great nation is an absolutely wise, chacham, upper sphira, and understanding people, navon, this is bina, second sphira. It is written again in the Zohar Chadash, Shir HaShirim, what kind of wisdom does man need? One kind is the wisdom to know and to look into the mystery of his master. One kind of wisdom is the man needs to know himself, to know who he is, how he was created, from where he came and to where he's going, the nature of the rectification of his body, and how in the future he will have to stand in judgment before the master of all. One kind of judgment, of wisdom, is the ability to know and look into the mysteries of the soul. And after this, the supernal secrets of the upper world in order to know his master, which is this upper sphira, da'at, the knowledge to cling to him, to be one with him. Man can see all these in the secrets of the Torah. So if we take the 7 species again, I'm just going to quote a few of them. Wheat, as we said, represents chesed, the mercy. It represents like the simple meaning of the Torah, the simple of the rich and the fullness of it, the life that the Torah gives, its abundance. The finest bread, the best offering for the celebration of Shavuot, the feast of the Torah. The barley represents strength. It's more limited. It's the aspect of the study of the Torah, the word of God. One must work to acquire it. We must toil in the Torah. The wheat and the barley, they also represent together the maturing process between Pesach and Shavuot, because we receive salvation freely, then after we work our salvation to Shavuot. Yeshua is also the bread of life, as it is described in the ethics of the Father. When there is no wheat, there is no Torah. But when there is no Torah, there is no wheat. We need both, Torah and the mitzvot. The parasha tells us again in Deuteronomy 8:3, man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by everything that comes from the mouth of the Lord. This verse is taken up in Luke 4:3. The devil said to him, if you are the Ben Elohim, the Son of God, command this stone to become bread. And in Matthew 4, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. So what is the story of the stone? How do we say stone in Hebrew? It says Even. Even is composed with 2 words, Av and Ben, father and son. What happens that the devil was trying to materialize the Father and the Son unity to make the revelation of a divine unity come before time and in a world where we cannot perceive it. It is not in our physical world here that we can understand all the mysteries of God and His anointed, because it belongs to the upper sphirot. When it will be time, it will be revealed. It is necessary to study not according to the literal meaning of the Torah and the Brit Hadashah, but according to its secret meaning as well, to understand its mystery. Otherwise, we are confused, because some verses talks about unity, other verses don't talk about unity. We're confused. We need to take it by faith, the unity of the Father and the Son, and to wait for the ultimate revelation. And the devil was trying to make it come before time, so Yeshua pushed him away. The grape symbolizes the sanctification of the Shabbat and the blood of the covenant. The grape, the wine, as we say, it represents the secret of the Torah, because it's 70 like the 70 nations. And in Psalm 78, which recounts the experience of the sons of Israel, it is written, I opened my mouth with sentences, I published the wisdom, chidot, of ancient times. The word here for wisdom is chidot. It has the same numerical value as Sod Mashiach, the secret of the Messiah, Messiah's secret. One more time. Then the figs. They talk also about the revelations of the Torah. In the Talmud, in Eruvim 54, it says, Rabbi Chia bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan said, what is the meaning of that which is written, he who guards the fig tree shall eat shall eat its fruit. Proverbs 27:18. Why were matters of Torah compared to a fig tree? Just as this fig tree, whenever a person searches it for figs to eat, he finds figs in it. As the figs on a tree do not ripen at all at once, there are 2 seasons, so that one can always find a recently ripened fig, so too with matters of Torah. Whenever a person meditates upon them, he finds in them new meaning. But you need to look for them, to meditate on it. By studying the Torah of the secrets, the figs, one prepares for the end of time. How do we see this? Matthew 24:32. Teach yourself by a comparison from the fig tree. As soon as its branches become tender and the leaves grow, you know that summer is near. The word summer in Hebrew is kaitz, but it is also ketz. Ketz is the end of times. We prepare for the end of time when we study the Torah of secrets through the biblical Kabbalah, through the Zohar, through the 4th level interpretation of the Torah. But for those who don't want to study the secrets of the Torah, who say that it's done with, the fig tree is cursed. Mark 11:13. Seeing a fig tree from afar that had leaves, he went to see if he would find anything on it. Would he want to meditate on the secrets of the Torah? And when he approached it, he found only leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he answered and said to him, let no man eat of thy fruit. He cursed the fig tree. But rest assured, we are in the end times, indeed, and all the figs will soon give us all their flavor. The Talmud in Sanhedrin 98 tells us that when it will be the end time, we call it the Ketz Agola, the end of the Galut, will come. When will it come? When we will see the sign that the land of Israel is producing its fruits again. In 1948, Israel returned to the land of Judah. The land gave back its fruits as prophesied even before, beginning of the century. Ezekiel 36, and you, O mountains of Israel, Judah and Samaria, shall put forth your branches and bear your fruit for my people Israel. For these things have come to pass. Behold, I will be gracious unto you, and I will turn unto you, and you shall be cultivated, and so on. The fruit is the fruit of the study of the Torah of secret. In the hills of Judah and Samaria, since 1967, the 6 Days War, the Torah is taught again and bears fruit for the coming revelation of the Messiah, Ben David, that time. By studying the Torah, one understands the mysteries of the kingdom in order to become a light for others by revealing the light of the Messiah, revealing him, the goal, the purpose of the Torah, as it says in Romans 10:4. For the Messiah is the goal of the Torah for the justification of all who believe. Revealing him, the light of the world, Or Haolam, is equal to Messiah. This is, by the way, the same numerical value as snake, serpent, nachash, because everything is going to come back to unity pure again, and we will be able to consume the tree of life and live forever. And he said unto them, these are the words which I spoke to you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which are written of me in the Torah of Moses, in the prophets, and the Psalms. Torah is a prophetic book, and all the prophecies are not yet fulfilled. Wait till we study the book of Genesis. Meanwhile, I encourage you to register, study the Torah in Yeshua with us, with the Holy Spirit, and I will promise you that you will be amazed by the revelation that are in those books. Thank you very much. Don't forget, everything is made because we all have to come back to the land, the house of Ephraim and the house of Judah together. Have a blessed Shabbat. Thank you for listening.